Behind me is the church of Santa Maria del Popolo. That's the plaza of the people, the People's Plaza, right here looking at the tomb of Nero. Behind me you see the Pincio Hill. That's where the family of Nero buried him. And after many centuries of rumors of demons and all kinds of apparitions, the Catholic Church, about the time of the Crusades, built this Santa Maria Church behind me. But that's not what we're here for, a cultural tour of the churches of Rome. What we're here for is what it says right here in Romans 13. Romans 13, as Paul sat to write these words on his third missionary journey, this is what he said: "Let every soul be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God, and the authorities that exist are appointed by God." Nero is probably the worst of all the Roman emperors. Nero was the one who murderously treated the church, but before that, murderously treated his own family and other people. He was cruel, tyrannical, excessive, everything you could think of, immoral, anti-God. What did Paul say in AD 55, 1 year after Nero came to power? Nero is appointed by God. I want you to think about politics. Many Christians today are wasting so much of their time trying to change the politics of their city or of their state or of their country. There's nothing wrong with being an influence for good. But Paul said, be subject to the authority that's over you. You say, well, that was early in Nero's reign. Well, if you look in your Bibles at 1 Peter 2, this is at the end of Nero's reign. Another apostle talks about him in 1 Peter 2 and verse 17. Let me read to you verse 17. This is Peter writing about AD 65. This is near the end of Nero's reign after all of his evil. And this is what Peter says: "Honor all people, love the brotherhood, fear God, honor the king." Who was the king as Peter wrote those words? Nero. Look at verse 18. "Servants, be submissive to your masters with all fear, not only to the good and gentle, but also to the harsh." Why? "For this is commendable because of conscience toward God." You see, both Peter and Paul believed that leaders were raised up by God. Even leaders like Caligula and Nero, the two evil, vile, wicked emperors. Behind me, that tomb reminds us of an emperor that's deeply ingrained in our minds. We think of the persecutions, we think of the suffering, we think of all that the church went through. In America, we're not going through anything like that, yet most Christian strength these days is all caught up in resisting and trying to change the government. Now I say, if you can vote, vote. I'm sure Paul did. He was a citizen. I'm sure he exercised his constitutional right as a good Roman to vote in anything that he was near and could vote in. But he didn't campaign against the president or against the ruling party. He didn't use his time to try and fight against the politics. What he said is, honor the king, like Peter said. Be subject to every ordinance of man for the Lord's sake. We remember Nero as the worst of the emperors. We also remember Paul in Romans 13. And as we go through Paul's life and letters, especially the epistle to the Romans, remember, be subject to every ordinance of man for the Lord's sake. This honors God, and this is what the Lord in His Word tells us to do.